Ever spent an entire night just staring at the ceiling, losing sleep to those endless what if scenarios? Like, what if my OPT doesn't arrive on time? Or maybe you've spent literally hours analyzing a simple one-line email from a US professor, desperately trying to decode some hidden meaning that, well, let's be real, probably isn't even there. Listen, if you're navigating the fast paced, high pressure world of studying in the US as an international student, you are definitely not alone. I mean, students are constantly reaching out, just totally exhausted, telling us that overthinking is completely draining them. So, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack exactly what overthinking is, why our brains insist on doing it, and most importantly, how we can actually stop it. All right, let's dive right in. Here's a quick roadmap of what we're going to cover to demystify this exhausting mental habit. We'll start with the overthinking trap, look at paralysis by analysis, explore why do we overthink, then get into strategies to break free, and finally, we'll compare critical thinking versus overthinking. Part 1, the overthinking trap. Caught in the loop. Let's start right at the beginning, because to fix the problem, we really need to understand the mechanics of it.
What exactly is happening in our brains when we start overanalyzing a situation? Whether it's an upcoming midterm or a slightly awkward chat you had at a career fair yesterday. Well, here's the crucial point. Overthinking is basically a mental loop where you continuously analyze a situation or problem without any new information being added. It is absolutely not about solving a problem. It's a trap. The data remains exactly the same, but you just keep spinning your wheels. You're staring at an open leak code problem or a job application portal, but your mind is caught in this totally different loop. You aren't actually making any progress, but man, your brain is working in absolute overdrive. Moving on to Section 2, paralysis by analysis, the cost of thinking. Let's look at the real-world impact here. Because spinning those mental wheels without getting anywhere isn't just a massive waste of time. It fundamentally damages our ability to act. We call this paralysis by analysis. It's this brilliant phrase that perfectly captures how constant evaluation completely freezes our decision-making abilities. It stops us dead in our tracks. Your ability to make a choice essentially gets paralyzed. When you analyze a situation so deeply and for so incredibly long, you eventually become completely incapable of making a decision at all. You just freeze. And beyond just tanking your productivity, overthinking takes a massive physical and social toll. Physically, it can manifest as high anxiety, absolute loss of sleep, severe muscle tension, and, even migraines. But the social cost, that's just as high. Overthinking can severely damage relationships. You might find yourself constantly overanalyzing an American classmate's tone or stressing over a roommate's passing comment, asking yourself, wait, did I do something wrong? When in reality, there's absolutely no underlying meaning. It makes it nearly impossible to maintain natural, easygoing relationships. Which brings us to Section 3. Why do we overthink? Evolution and psychology. I mean, if it's so bad for us, seriously, if it causes migraines, ruins our sleep, and hurts our friendships, why on earth do we do it? To answer that, we actually have to look back at human evolution. It's kind of fascinating when you think about it. Early humans completely lacked physical defenses. We weren't the fastest runners, we definitely didn't have sharp claws, and we obviously couldn't fly. So what did we have? We relied heavily on our ultimate weapon, the human brain. The ability to think was literally our greatest survival tool. Because of this, human beings naturally became hardwired to over-evaluate threats. It kept us alive. But today that evolutionary advantage often just breeds indecision and a whole lot of anxiety. And what's really interesting is how these psychological triggers operate in our modern world. Things like perfectionism, past negative experiences, or fear of uncertainty. We are terrified of the future, like, am I going to secure an internship before summer? So we overthink. We falsely believe that if we just analyze the situation enough, we can somehow control the outcome. The illusion of control, right? But we can't. And for a lot of us, simple habit and addiction play a huge role. We just get incredibly used to the habit of overanalyzing absolutely everything. Okay, Section 4, strategies to break free, taking back control. Now that we know the diagnosis and the evolutionary tricks our brain is playing on us, let's pivot to some actionable remedies. How do we actually break the habit? Well, you've probably heard this advice a million times. Just meditate. And look, it's true. Meditation and mindfulness can really anchor you in the present moment, but there is no one-size-fits-all solution. It might not work for you. And honestly, that is perfectly okay. Mindfulness is definitely not the only tool in the toolbox. So let's explore some highly practical, physical interventions you can actually apply right now. First up, time-boxing decisions.
Let's translate this into a very physical, actionable step. For practical choices like deciding which elective class is going to best boost your resume or which layout to use for your portfolio, use time boxing. You literally say to yourself, okay, I'm going to worry about the pros and cons of this for exactly 5 to 7 minutes. Set a strict timer, and once that alarm goes off, you make the choice and you stick to your decision. You have to limit the time you're allowed to sit there and imagine worst-case scenarios. Here's another great trick. When you catch yourself caught in a loop, challenge yourself with this simple question. Did the last 30 minutes of overthinking bring any actual benefit? Just ask yourself that to force some self-reflection and break the spell of endless worry. If you've been stressing over an assignment for the last half hour, ask yourself, what did this 30 minutes actually achieve? Did I uncover any new information? Did I type a single new word? If the answer is no, well, it's time to physically break the cycle. We also have to challenge our worst-case scenarios by separating what is merely a possibility from what is an actual probability. Think about an airplane. Is it possible the plane could crash? Yes, for sure, it is a possibility. But what is the probability? Mathematically, it is almost impossible. When you find yourself obsessing over a worst-case scenario, like, I don't know, failing a single test and ruining your entire career, ask yourself, okay, yes, it's a possibility, but what is the actual mathematical probability? Usually it's incredibly, incredibly low. Another incredibly effective tool is to break the isolation. Overthinking absolutely thrives when you're just sitting alone in your room. A fantastic quick trick is to engage in team sports or interactive games to snap out of solitary thought loops. Go join a campus intramural team or just go play cricket or soccer with your friends. When you are engaged in a fast-paced environment with other people, your brain literally cannot sustain that solitary mental cycle of overthinking. You force your mind back into the present reality. Finally, Section 5, critical thinking versus overthinking. As we wrap up this explainer, we really need to make one vital distinction. We want to make sure we don't throw out the good with the bad here, because thinking in and of itself is obviously not the enemy. Critical thinking is an essential prerequisite for human progress. Having a critical mind is literally what makes us human. But we must recognize when productive analysis devolves into overthinking, a destructive loop that stops action. You have to learn to spot the difference between intelligently analyzing a situation to find an actual solution and obsessively splitting hairs just to delay taking a step forward. And that leads me to a pretty provocative thought I want to leave you with today. Are you overthinking because you secretly want an excuse to avoid taking action? Honestly, sometimes we overthink simply to avoid the responsibility, the credit, or the blame of taking real action. It becomes an escape route so we can say, well, I couldn't do it because I was considering all these other factors. Ultimately, a lot of this stems from a lack of self-compassion. When you are thousands of miles from home trying to build a completely new life and career, the pressure is immense. So please practice self-compassion. Allow yourself to make mistakes without constantly punishing yourself in your own mind. Take small baby steps. Use the strategies we discussed today. And finally, break the loop.